Hello friends, welcome to MATLAB for Beginners class. In the previous class, we looked at variable definition and we also looked at some display formats in MATLAB. So today we are going to look at functions and predefined variables in MATLAB. So today we are going to look at functions, predefined variables, and complex numbers. So except for basic commands like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, most MATLAB commands are functions. So example of functions include sine, cos, tan. All these are examples of functions. Now functions usually requires you to have an input argument, and if you give an input argument, then it will return a value. So as I said example of functions. We have sine, so I can have sine x. I can have absolute value of x. I can, another function is fprintf. Another function is log x. So these are all examples of functions. So it requires an input argument, and the input argument is for you to give a value. So here your input argument is x. So if you put in x, it is going to return a particular value. So let's say we find sine 3. So if I type sine 3 in MATLAB, it is going to give me an answer. Let's say I have an equation, b is equal to sine 2 plus x divided by sine x. So now let's try and open MATLAB and see if we can type these functions in MATLAB. Okay, so our first function is sine. So let's say sine 2. So sine 2, MATLAB has been able to return an answer. Now in the second equation we have sine x plus 2 over sine x. So now we have to define the variable for x. So you can say, let's say x is equal to 30. Let's terminate it and press enter. Then now our equation is a is equal to, or let me use a b. B is equal to sine into bracket 2 plus x divided by sine into bracket x. So let's press enter. It has given me an answer. So I can perform a lot of functions, operations with these functions. So the sine function requires a single input and it will return a single value. Okay, so a function can also have no input, and they do not have to return a value. So if a function doesn't have an input, it will not um, return a value. So mostly we use built-in functions for most of our calculations. So for this course, I'll be using a lot of built-in functions. So I will make a separate video to cover how to create and use functions in detail. So now let's look at predefined variables. What are these predefined variables? So in MATLAB, there are a lot of variables which are already defined, and if you want to use them, there is no need for you to redefine these variables again. So you can display the values of these variables the same way we display values of a variable that we define. So now let's look at some of them. So the first one is answer. So if I type, let's say, uh, A is equal to A is equal to 2, and I press enter, it will give me answer A is equal to 2. So answer, when you talk about answer, it holds the value of the most recent calculation if the calculation was not stored in a variable. Now the next one, which is pi. So you know pi. So okay, so pi. So in MATLAB, pi, as I said in the previous video, that it is represented by pi. So another one is EPS. So it is small EPS. So EPS, when you talk about the smallest number, uh, such that when you add to 1, create a floating point number greater than 1 on the computer. So that is, it is going to return the smallest number. Now the next one is infinity. So for infinity, so if for example, if I give an equation like 1 over 0, you know that 1 over 0 is infinity. So MATLAB is going to display infinity. So then the next one is NaN, which is not a number. So if you perform an invalid operation, let's say I perform 0 over 0, MATLAB will return not a number because it is not a number. If I perform something like infinity over infinity, it is not a number. If I perform something like infinity over 0, it is also not a number. Now the next one is I. So I, when you find the square root of -1, so when I find the square root of -1, it gives me a number in I. The same thing happens when I use J also. So J is also a complex. It's using complex. I and J are using complex numbers. So if I find the square root of -1 also, it will give me either I or J. So in MATLAB, to find the square root, we use a command called sqrt. So sqrt of -1 will give me an answer in I or in J. So another command is real mean. So real mean displays the smallest usable positive real numbers, and the next is real max. Real max also displays the largest usable positive real numbers. Okay, so now let's go back to MATLAB and see how these predefined variables work. Okay, so now let's say I have a function and my function is equal to a, and a is 1 over 0. If I enter 1 over 0 and I press enter, MATLAB will tell me it is infinity. So if I also say that my c is equal to 6 plus a and I press enter, it's also infinity because a is infinity. So if let's say I say my d is equal to minus 1 multiplied by a and I press enter, I am getting my answer in a negative infinity. So now let's look at the function for not a number. So if let's say I multiply f is equal to, I'm going to multiply 0 by c and I press enter, it is giving me not a number. So now this is how the predefined variables work in MATLAB. So now let's move on to look at complex numbers. So pure imaginary and complex numbers are expressed in MATLAB by the letter I or J. So if I have an imaginary number and a complex number, they are expressed using I or J. So in MATLAB, both I and J are defined as root of -1, as I talked about. So if we take the square root of -1, MATLAB will display the number containing letter I. So you remember I said if you want to use square root, use sqrt. Okay, so now let's move on to MATLAB and perform some calculations to see what happens when you enter values for these real and imaginary, and see how it will return the value I and J. Okay, let me clear my screen. Okay, so now if I have a square root square root of -1. Let me press enter. So you can see that it is giving me 0.0 plus 1.00i. So now know that the result is displayed as a complex number. So the real part is the 0.00 and the imaginary part is the 1 multiplied by I. So the next example, let's calculate the root of -9. So let's find the square root of -9. Okay, so square root of -9 is given 0.00 plus 3.00i. So it means the square root of -9 is 3i. So here complex numbers have a real and imaginary part as I talked about. So to express a complex number, we express the number as the real part plus the imaginary part. So let's look at one example. So the example, let's say I have 3 plus 4i. So 3, if I have something like 3 plus 4i and 7 plus 2j. So I have both the real part and the imaginary part. So now, in this case, you can see we have the one side as the real part, one side as the imaginary part. So MATLAB automatically handles calculation with complex numbers. So example, if let's say we want to calculate the ratio of 1 plus 2i divided by 3 plus 5i. So we simply type it in the equation and it will give you an answer. So let's say I have 1 plus 2i, and the ratio and 3 plus 5i. So if I press enter, it is going to give me an answer. Okay, so now let's say I have an equation and I want to find the real part. So let's say my equation is a is equal to 3 plus 4i. So if I want to find the real part, I'll use the command called real. So I will use real, then into brackets a. So I'll find the real part of a. So if I enter, if I press enter, it gives me 3, notifying that the real part is 3. Now, if I want to find the imaginary part, we use what we call IMAG. IMAG. So IMAG is equal to the function a, and I press enter. it is giving me the imaginary part as 4. So now I can also use the apps, that is ABS function, to return the magnitude of the complex number. So if I type ABS into brackets A, and I press enter, it is going to give me the absolute value of A. Okay, so if I want to find the angle function, which is returning angle in radians, I'll use angle AGL, sorry, ANGLE, then open bracket and put A. So A and close it. If I press enter, it is going to return the angle in radian. So you can also convert the angle to degree by multiplying the result of the angle function by 360 over 2 pi. So if I type, let's say F is equal to angle A multiplied by 360 divided by, let me open bracket, 2 multiply pi, and I press enter, it is going to give me, or it's going to return the angle in degree. So thank you very much. In the next video, we are going to look at matrices and vectors. So see you. Thank you very much for watching, and please do well to subscribe.